I want to ask before we get started, are you one of those people who has a hard time saying no? I know that I am sometimes. Are you the one that everybody depends on? Are you the responsible one? People come to you and they know it'll be taken care of? You ever find yourself in that role? Or how about that feeling that sometimes people take advantage of you? Does it get to the point where you don't have enough time to take care of you? Well, if any of that sounds familiar, which in my case sometimes it does too, you're in the right spot. Because so many women struggle with boundaries. They either don't have them, they don't enforce them if they do, or maybe they don't even really understand the importance of them. And that's what I want to help demystify today. So what we're talking about today is healthy boundaries, creating and maintaining them. So the title of the webinar is, Are You Tired of Being in Last Place in Your Own Life? Because a lot of women serve so many other people, and they find themselves at the end of the line and unable to take care of themselves. And it can affect ourselves physically, which I came to find out, and I'll share a little bit more about that in a bit. So how healthy boundaries put you in the lead. For those of you who don't know me, I am Debbie Peterson, and I'm a professional speaker, trainer, and expert to fed up midlife women seeking clarity of their identity and purpose, and doing it with a sense of confidence, building that strong confidence. I speak to different women's groups and do corporate events. I'll go in and do trainings and workshops. I do my own workshops. And today, this is the part of my online platform that I'm building in order to be able to serve more women, because I believe that women need to help other women, and every woman deserves a chance to compassionately uncover her inner brilliance, because it is there. So today, talking about healthy boundaries, what they are. We're going to be talking about how you know they've been crossed, why it's critical that you have them, how they affect your identity, your purpose, and your confidence. Then we're going to talk about 5 ways that you can create and maintain these healthy boundaries. And we're going to have a Q&A. So I have about an hour for the webinar. I want to make sure that I stay on track and I'm respectful of your time. So we're going to take about 40 to 45 minutes to talk about this. And my mission today is to leave you with an awareness of where your own boundaries are, as well as how you might allow them to be crossed. So being aware of that is important. Also being aware of where you may not have created them. Because I'm a woman who struggled with boundaries, and it really wasn't until I got clearer on got more clarity around my boundaries that things started to change. I was one of those people where I loved being busy. I loved being needed. It was just so ingrained in me that I had to provide value to other people. And it drove me to do a lot of what I did. I would feel guilty when I said no. And a lot of times it was just easier for me to take care of it myself instead of delegating it to someone else. Does any of that sound familiar? I mean, at one point I think I had this God complex that if I didn't take care of it, it wasn't going to be done right. And you know what? It's just not the case. It's just something we like to tell ourselves. And it may make us feel more important in the short term, but it really serves to undermine us in the long term, because we need help. And when we feel that way, we won't ask for the help that we need when we need it. So I was at the point where I was striving to have, the perfect house and have it be cleaned and picked up and decorated and, be a great friend, be a good daughter, sister, mother, wife, be a better employee, work harder so I would be recognized, and, busy at church, busy at my son's school, because that's what I thought I should do. As a good person, I thought that's what I should do. I never said no. And it was easier for me to bend my life to fit to someone else's needs rather than say no. I would really go out of my way. And I thought that would make me more likable. But you know what happened? It caused me to hit the wall. When I say hit the wall, this is what I mean. I got to the point in my life where I was having heart palpitations. I was having numbness in my left hand. I couldn't get a full breath. And, you know, you don't think about that, but when you can't expand your lungs enough to get a deep breath of air, it's almost panicking. I wasn't sleeping at night. My emotions were just trash. I mean, I would cry at the drop of the hat. And finally, I got to the point where I'm like, I don't recognize myself anymore. And I remember saying to my husband, I've got to go to the doctor. I just have to figure this out because I'm not me. And so I went to my doctor and I told him what was going on. And he said, well, let's run some tests because I have heart disease on both sides of my family. I did the EKG, I did the heart sonogram, and I wore the heart monitor. Oh, that was a blast. And when I went back in to get my results, I remember him saying, we have good news and we have bad news. And I thought, okay. And the good news is, he said, it's not your heart. Great. But the bad news is that it's stress and it's showing up in your body physically, that anxiety that you're creating. What I want to do, he says to me, is write a script for anti-anxiety medicine. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. At this point, I'm already on high blood pressure medicine, and I'm already on migraine medicine, and I'm thinking of adding another medicine to my cabinet, and I know this is not going in the right direction. And I'm not even 40 yet, right? So I said to him, I really want to figure it out. I want to figure out what it is that is stressing me out so badly. And I took some time to do that, but not long after that visit with my doctor, my husband's mother had passed away. And he was in a very, very sad place. And I just knew that I didn't have it inside of me to be who I needed to be for him at that point. And so I called the doctor back and I said, you know what, just write the script. And it was really pretty amazing that that little pill could make me feel so much like who I was. It was like somebody took the lid off of the jar that I had been living in, and I was myself again. But yet I still knew it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't a long-term solution for me. It wasn't until a few months later that I was selected to go to a training, an NLP training. So for those of you not familiar with NLP, it is neuro-linguistic programming. Scientific term, but essentially what it means, neuro is the mind, linguistic is language, and programming is habits, strategies, unconscious processes that we use every day to get things done in our life. So for instance, you get up in the morning and you go into the bathroom to brush your teeth, right? You pick up the toothbrush and the toothpaste in the same hands, you put on an amount, you brush your teeth for a designated period of time, usually start in the same place, and it's all unconscious. You don't even think about it. It is your unconscious routine. So NLP is the language of the mind that produces your behavior and therefore your results, which creates your reality. So if you have habits that serve you and allow you to use your conscious thinking, and they take care of the unconscious thinking, that's great. But when you have those unconscious habits that don't serve you, like those stories that we tell ourselves about us not being good enough, or I'm too old to do this, or I'm too young to do this, or I'm just flat out not good at this, it's those unconscious habits that hold us back. They cover up our inner brilliance, they keep us in a box, and those are the ones that NLP interrupts. So the language of the mind to produce your results is what I refer to it as. And when I went through the training, it was just so exciting because I thought of all the ways that I could incorporate this into my life, and that's exactly what I ended up doing. I went through practitioner training, which was 9 days. I went through master practitioner training, which was 14 days, and then I went through trainer's training, which was 16 days. And then I have gone back and assisted at all of them multiple times. And the reason is that it gave me an opportunity to pay it forward to other students to help them through the training. And it also allowed me to hear the information again because I was hooked. And by the time I had got to the trainer's training, the last training, I actually didn't plan very well. I forgot my medicine. But I knew that I was in a different place and that I really didn't need the medicine anymore. And so I made a decision to talk to my doctor when I get back, because you never stop taking a medicine without notifying your doctor, and told him that I didn't feel I needed it anymore, and I haven't taken it since. I was done. I was in a different place because my thoughts had changed how I was living my life, and that stress was being dealt with in a different way, if I was experiencing it at all. So, the top 10 signs you need healthy boundaries. Number 1, you're last in line in your own life. Everyone seems to come before you when it comes to your time. Number 2, at one point you enjoyed doing it, but now you feel you have to do it. And I know you know what that means. There's a difference between doing something because you want to do it and doing something because you have to do it. Number 3, you feel guilty if you don't. Number 4, you keep hoping that someone will change, but they never do, that they'll stop doing whatever it is that they do to cross your boundaries. Number 5, you feel like there is no one else to do it correctly, so that's kind of back to my little God complex, where I thought I was the only one who could take care of it appropriately. Number 6, no one else wants to do it, so it defaults to you, or at least you think it defaults to you. Number 7, you feel resentment. Number 8, you constantly feel overwhelmed. Number 9, as much as you help others, there is never one around to help you when you need it. What's up with that? Number 10, you say you're going to stop it. You're going to draw that line in the sand, but it never seems to happen. Does any of that sound familiar? Oh my goodness, have I been there? So why even care about boundaries? Why are they important? Well, boundaries are how we teach people to treat us. If we don't have boundaries, then people are going to continue to expand and expand more and more into our lives. And not because they're mean or malicious, although there may be some people who are, but they do that because no one's telling them they shouldn't or that they can't. No one's telling them not to. So boundaries are how we convey who we are, what's important to us, what we stand for, and they are absolutely critical in any relationship. So a relationship with a spouse or a significant other, those relationships that we have with our children, our friends, coworkers, even that sense of family that's connected. Now, family can be tricky, and a connected family can be very tricky. Boundaries have to be in place in order for that to work. So discovering and creating your boundaries, it gives you a sense of how you become your own best friend instead of your own worst enemy. And how many of us are our own worst enemy? So the voice inside your head, is she nice or is she nasty? And if she's both, what is she more often than not? Healthy boundaries help you connect with your inner mentor and not your inner critic. And we're going to be talking about that in just a little bit. So what boundaries are? Boundaries are very similar to property lines. Maybe you live in a neighborhood, you have a piece of land that you bought, you have the deed for it, it's been surveyed, you know where your property lines are. You get to decide what happens on that property because it's yours. Maybe you have a fence on it, so you decide who gets to come in and who stays out, right? Houses have walls, so all of your personal property is inside your house, all your valuables, maybe paintings and jewelry and electronics, whatever. You don't leave it wide open for the world to have access to. You protect it. And again, you decide who comes in and who doesn't into your home, into those walls. At work, you have schedules, and that tells who's working and who's not and when. You have projects and job descriptions, who's doing what, who's responsible for what. These are all ways of conveying information about boundaries. They're all forms of boundaries. Because if you didn't have this, if you didn't have any job descriptions, if you didn't have any work schedules, if you didn't, have any project parameters, it'd be a hot mess, right? So these are things that you need as guidelines, and that's what boundaries are. They're like guidelines. I mean, even with babies, and I remember when my son was little, they always say that around the holidays, make sure that you keep their schedules as consistent as you can. So make sure that they're napping around the same time, making sure that they're eating the same kind of food, which I know can be incredibly hard. But I would change things so I would have people to my house instead of me traveling to other houses, because then I had more control over that consistency of his schedule. That's a boundary. So we know how to create boundaries and operate within boundaries. You know, if we have a house and property or fences, or if we have a job and a job description or a part of a team or a project, I mean, we already know how to operate with boundaries. But why do we have such a hard time doing it for ourselves? Well, that's what we're going to get into. How you know. I want you to know how you know when your boundaries have been crossed. So one way is there's a little voice. Something happens and you're thinking, oh, man, that just wasn't right. I can't believe this happened. I can't believe she did that, or whatever it may be. But there's a little voice telling you that, no bueno. Also, how you feel. Maybe you've got a pit in your stomach, a little sick to your stomach. Maybe you feel resentment. Maybe it's happened enough that you're really beginning to resent this person, enough that you have anger at someone. You just had enough of it. Maybe you are feeling overwhelmed with everything that's going on in your life. Maybe there's just too much of it because you're not saying no. Maybe you feel hurt or you feel sad that someone did this to you. Maybe you feel betrayed. Well, it's critical that you have them. And why it's critical if you have them is that if you don't define them, somebody else is going to. When you have boundaries, it's your job to say, this is who I am. This is what's important to me. This is what I stand for. This is what I'll accept, and this is what I won't. And if you're not willing to do that, then by default, someone else who does have boundaries can expand more and more into your own. So they start encroaching on your area. So you have this beautiful unconscious mind, and it runs your body just beautifully. I mean, you're sitting here and your heart is beating and you don't even have to think about it. It's just beating on its own. You're not thinking, okay, beat. All right, beat again and beat again. Oh, wait a minute, blink your eye, take a breath. I mean, your unconscious runs your body. It's just an incredible machine. It also stores our memories. So maybe something pops into your mind, something reminds you of something, and something pops into your mind that you hadn't thought about in decades. So, for instance, when I was a little girl, I used to pretend my bicycle was a car, and I would take a key, and I would stick it in the hole in the rubber grip on the handlebars. You know where the streamers used to go? But they never lasted very long, did they? The streamers always, ended up getting thrown away or falling off. When's the last time you thought about that? And all of a sudden that pops into your mind and you're thinking about the bike you had when you were a little girl, and maybe it had streamers, or maybe you were mad because it didn't. But when's the last time you thought about that? That memory was in your unconscious. The unconscious also is the domain of our emotions. So maybe you hear a song and it takes you back to an event, and it was something that was maybe a little sad for you, or really, really happy, and all of a sudden you're feeling that sadness or you're feeling that joy. And you're like, where did that come from? That comes from the unconscious. Our unconscious will protect us. So when there are things that we're not ready to deal with, it will hold on to them until we are. So that's why when you're having a really great day and something pops up and it makes you a little sad, and you're tempted to shut it down and say, oh no, I'm having such a good day, I don't want to deal with that. You should do the exact opposite. You should absolutely deal with it, because the unconscious also brings repressed memories and emotions to the surface because you're ready to deal with them. You have what you need to inside to deal with them, and so you should. The unconscious mind doesn't process negatives. So when I say don't think of a blue tree, you probably just thought of a blue tree. So whenever you're thinking, I don't want something, I don't want to be poor, I don't want to be fat, my word, not yours, then you're thinking about exactly that. So it doesn't process negatives. And it also needs repetition. That's why it's not a one and done. You need to be consistent. You need to develop habits and it needs the repetition. The unconscious mind needs the repetition to form a habit. So most of us have boundaries, but oftentimes maybe not enough of them. And when we don't enforce our boundaries with ourselves or with others, it's a form of disrespect, but it's disrespecting us. So you have somebody maybe who is stepping on your boundaries, and you feel that they're disrespecting you. But by you not addressing it, you're disrespecting yourself, if that makes sense. It's like disrespecting that beautiful unconscious mind that's working so hard for us. It just wants to go out and find exactly what we're looking for. It's working so hard for us, but when we're not willing to enforce those boundaries, when we're not willing to say, you know what, that's not who I am, and I'm not willing to accept that, it's like disrespecting your unconscious mind. And why should it work so hard in finding you things that you're not going to enforce, you're not going to take, you're not going to say, this is what I want, and I'm going to do the work to get it. So that's the self-sabotage. The unconscious knows how to get what we want, and that's why we get those gut feelings. So when you're standing at the refrigerator looking, or the counter looking at blueberries and brownies, and your mind is saying, you know, that little voice in your head is saying blueberries, but you're looking at the plate of brownies and you go in that direction. That little voice was your unconscious saying, I know what you want, make this choice, it will take you towards you getting there. But then you consciously choose to go in another direction. That's what I'm talking about. Also, bigger lessons. So when we talk about lessons, when we're talking about how we feel, so before we talked about resentment, if something has been happening enough that we are resenting the person for it happening, then we're not dealing with our lesson. Our lesson is we need to do something about that person. And lessons will get bigger and bigger and bigger. So the unconscious is bringing you the lessons because you need to get this lesson. This is new information you need to have in order to move towards what you want, right? So when we don't enforce our boundaries and when we let it get to the point where we are starting to resent a person because of it, that's a sign. And the lesson will continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger until there is a blinged out 2x4 coming at your head. And believe me, I'm speaking from experience, and it's not comfortable. It is much more productive to get our lessons when they're smaller, to deal with our boundaries, to deal with those people that are stepping on our boundaries or crossing our boundaries. Because the unconscious figures, well, I gave her this lesson, and she made a choice to go in another direction. She didn't pay attention to it. So I guess I need to make it bigger so she'll pay attention to it the next time. That's how it works. So lessons will get bigger until we finally get them. Also, when you think that someone is doing something to you, that I wish they would stop crossing my boundaries, that's another form of lesson. Because when you're pointing a finger at someone else, look what those remaining fingers are pointed at, the remaining 3 fingers. And that's an indicator of where the responsibility lies. So that's also a lesson. So let's talk about now the 5 ways to easily create them. And we're going to be covering all of these a little more in depth. Learn to say no. Big one. Be the straw. Tap your inner mentor. What's your bullseye? And who's your posse? So the first one, learn to say no. No is a complete sentence, by the way. When you say no to someone, or I can't, or I'm not able to, then that's it. That's where you stop. So you say it and you zip it. You have to learn to bear that uncomfortable silence, and it's on the other person. You have already given your answer, and you are not required to say anything else. This means to family, this means to friends, people who want you to do things that you can't. A woman who's on my mailing list shared with me, she came back after one of my newsletters. She says, I'm not good at saying no, but better than I once was. When it is no, my response is that I would love to, but I can't right now. And actually, I would say that she's getting a whole lot better at saying no, because She can say that, she would love to, but she can't right now. There's a lot of different ways that you can say no. Stay true to yourself. And if you're not able, just say, I'm not able. And if somebody asks you why, I have my own reasons, I'm not able. I can't right now. I'm not able to right now. And you don't need to divulge. If somebody's hammering away at you because they don't like your answer, that's not on you. That is on them. So the next one, be the straw. I always have straws hanging around my office, and as a matter of fact, I pass them out in my workshops because it's a really important message for women to be the straw. I have a yellow one right here. It's got the articulated top. I like those best. And here's the deal with the straw. When you drink through a straw, say you're drinking a glass of water through a straw, the water doesn't stay in the straw. The water passes through the straw when you drink it. You need to be the straw. So when you give an answer and someone doesn't like your answer, that's on them. That's not on you. You need to be the straw. Whatever it is that they're unhappy with or dissatisfied with, that is their unhappiness or dissatisfaction. It doesn't belong to you. Be the straw. You just let it pass right through. It's your answer. They're in charge of their reaction, and you're in charge of yours. So if they don't like your answer, that's their problem. So you be the straw. You let their opinion pass straight through, and know that you're in charge of your own reaction, and they're in charge of yours. Don't take on anyone else's stuff. I mean, you've got enough to deal with, right? You don't need anyone else's baggage. So be the straw. Go out and get a package of straws. Tape one to the top of your computer screen. Tap your inner mentor. Okay, your inner mentor. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to close your eyes and take a breath. Relax. I want you to think about the successful version of you 20 years down the road. So she has achieved everything it is that you want. She is living in the house that you want to live in. She is driving the car that you want to drive. She has the job that you want to have. She has the lifestyle that you want to have. She has the fitness level and everything else that goes with that lifestyle that you want to have. She is the successful version of you. See what she looks like. That's your inner mentor. She has already arrived at where you want to go, and she's waiting for you. She has all kinds of guidance and tips for you. When you get in a situation where someone is crossing your boundaries, when you're unsure of what to do, close your eyes, visualize your inner mentor, and ask her. Listen to what she has to say. What comes to you? It's also a good idea to write these things down so that you have them in the future, so that you have them to refer to. She has valuable advice for how you to get what you want. So what would she say to you? Now, before I go on, I wanted to just check, has this been useful information so far? Great. Clear. Okay. I wanted to share something with you, if I could. Is it okay if I share something with you? There's a reason I started with healthy boundaries. Because in order for a woman to get the time to discover what is next for her, she has to be able to create and maintain those boundaries so that she has that time to spend on herself, for the woman who wants to figure out what's next in her life. And I thought, okay, she is able to create that time. She's able to say, this is what I need. What can I create to help her move forward with writing her next chapter the way that she wants? Every woman has a next chapter in her life. And sometimes, though, it is no idea how to get it. It's, you know that something has to change, but you just don't know what that is. It's that feeling of feeling frustrated and overwhelmed and just tired of being that way. No idea what the next steps are. And I thought, I need to do something for her. So what I've done is I have created an e-course. It's called From Frustrated to Focused in 4 weeks. So let me show you. The Frustrated to Focus in 4 weeks is a program around helping you uncover your inner brilliance. So helping you discover what holds you back from writing your next chapter the way that you want it. So I want to talk a little bit about what this course has to offer. What I'm trying to do, what I want to do for you is I want to help you because I have years of training and I've got the tools that have transformed my own life that really helped me get a sense of purpose and my identity, who I truly am, along with building my confidence. I was able to shed baggage that allowed me the clarity of the direction I wanted to go and give me more satisfaction in my life. So in this course, in the first week, it's all about learning what you have control over. So this is going to be an e-course. It'll be delivered via email, and it's going to start on Thursday, May 28th, in just a couple of weeks, few weeks. In the first week, you know, this is a mindset lifestyle change, so there's really a lot of things that you need to understand. So these are the core lessons about what you have control over, because often we try to take on more than we should. So it's getting clarity around that the first week. The second week, identifying the minefield in your mindset. So these questions are literally your answers. So this is uncovering all of the things that are covering up your inner brilliance and getting them down on paper so you know absolutely what it is that you need to work on. Week 3, Shake It Off. I love that song. Week 3 is about taking what you have uncovered and allowing you to let it go. So it's a series of guided meditations to help you release those negative emotions such as anger, sadness, fear, guilt, hurt, shame, also limiting beliefs and limiting decisions that keep us in those boxes and keep us from moving forward in the direction that we want. Week 4, we're going to brainstorm. So now that we've gotten rid of the stuff that covered up our inner brilliance, we're going to start the exploration process of what may be next for you. So questions and exercises that'll help guide you in that direction. And then in addition, on the second week, we're going to have a live Q&A call. I want to ensure that your process of answering the questions has uncovered everything that you're going to need to let go of in the third week. So I want to make sure that you're fully prepared for the third week because that's important. And then in addition, the course is interactive. So there are webinars, there's exercises, there'll be some lecture, journaling. You're going to get all of the instructions each week. You'll get an email each week on your lessons. You'll get the worksheets as well as, again, the Q&A call on the second week to make sure you're ready for the third, because I want to make sure that you progress through the program. You know, every woman has a next chapter, as I was saying, whether she's an empty nester now or she wants a new career, change career, maybe she wants to start a business, maybe it's more around relationships, that she wants a relationship, or maybe she wants that relationship that she knows she deserves. So the course is fundamental in making sure that you're starting your next chapter with clarity and confidence. The course is also based on my training in NLP. So I am a trainer of NLP. I have thousands and thousands of hours in training and courses in NLP. I'm also a student of Huna. Huna is Hawaiian spiritualism. It is the spirit, mind, body. So the programs that I design using NLP and Huna are about all 4 pieces of ourselves, that spirit, mental, emotional, and physical pieces of ourselves, those 4 selves, and addressing each of them, because that's how you integrate it in a way that is whole, for the whole person. I believe that every woman has what she needs inside of her to be exactly who she's meant to be, and all she needs to do is discover what it is that covers up her inner brilliance. When you are coaching with someone, and you know, coaching one-on-one can be expensive. Some coaches charge hundreds of dollars an hour, and trainings that some people go through are thousands and thousands of dollars. And I think, how can I share information for women to be able to take their next step, but provide it in a platform that is affordable for her? So what I've done is created the e-course. It is $97, but today, because you've already demonstrated, you know, you're here, you want to take a next step, you've already said that this is what I deserve for myself by being here, I want to offer it to you for $47. So if you go to gettingtoclarity.com/from frustrated to focused, you can click there to register for the webinar. I'm only going to hold this price for the period that I have the webinar open, the replay open, and then I am going to take it down, and it will go back to the $97 rate for the 4 weeks. This is the course that is the foundation of all the other courses that I do. So this is the course that you will take to get the fundamentals in order to do any other course that I have. It's just that important. I believe that every woman has exactly what she needs to accomplish what she wants, and she just needs to discover what's helping to, you know, what's covering it up. So I really hope that you'll join me and you'll take the next step in putting yourself first in your own life. So let me get back to the next steps. What's your bullseye? So the next thing we're talking about is, what's your bullseye? You can't hit a bullseye without a target, right? Just like you can't enforce the boundary if you haven't set one. When you take a trip and you put in your GPS, you have to have a starting place in order to know where you're going, because then you can plan out your route. Same thing. You need to have a boundary so that you know what's acceptable and what's not, who you are, what you stand for. So one way to do that, here's a little exercise, is that in each of the areas of your life, and those usually break down by family, personal development, career, health and fitness, spirituality, relationships, those 6 areas. In those areas, so put each label at the top of a page. And then have you ever done this, or do you know anybody who's ever done this, when they're looking for a new relationship? So they're looking to date a guy, and they'll create that 3-part list. The first part of the list is, this is what the guy must have. The second part of the list is, well, this is what is acceptable. The third part of the list is, this is the no way. This is the deal breaker. I can't date anybody if they're like this. Have you ever done that, or you know anybody who's ever done that? Times when people are shopping for houses, they'll have that 3-part list. Okay, the house has to have a fireplace, and it has to have a functional kitchen. If it has a swimming pool, that's great, but that's not a deal breaker. Oh, and outside of this area, geographic area, then that's a deal breaker, because I only want to live in this area. So I encourage you to do the same thing for each area of your life. So for relationships with a spouse or a significant other, when you think of that relationship, what is it that is most important to you, that you absolutely need to have? What is it that is acceptable, and what is it that's a deal breaker? Then move on to career and do the same thing with your career. Do the same thing with family, so your kids and your extended family, with your health and fitness, with your personal development, your spirituality. If you complete this exercise in all areas of your life, then you have a better understanding of where your boundaries will be. And when you put it to paper, it just means so much more when you put that pen to paper and you write it down. Now, the other thing is, boundaries can be incremental or contextual. So in one situation, you would do this. In another situation, you might react a little differently. But the idea is that it's for you to decide. So what's your bullseye? You're getting to that point that you know what it is that you're going for. The last one is, who's your posse? Who are the people that you surround yourself with? So you're the average of the top 5 people that you spend time with. Who are those people? Are they people who lift you up and support you? Who are the people that can help you set boundaries? Who are the people that can help you maintain your boundaries? Who are the people that you can go to when you have to have a difficult situation with someone, a conversation, maybe enforcing a boundary, and you go to them because you just need to talk to someone who understands? Who are those people in your life? Are you surrounded by people that are your posse? Or do you have some energy vampires and drama queens in there? I know I did at one point in my life. And when I recognized that's what it was, you know, not everybody deserves to have a space in your life. Energy vampires are the people who suck the life out of you, by the way. So are there any people like that around you? So then one of the things that I wanted to do is, I want to go back. I want to talk to you about some examples of people that I've come across in my life that will give you ideas on boundaries. So one of the best examples that I have is of my sister. About 10 years ago, she got sick, and what happened was the doctor's office called her and said, we need you to come in, and can you bring your husband? And at that point, he was out of town. He was away for work. And she said, well, he's not here. I'll be in this afternoon. And they said, well, can you bring a family member then? And the red flag went up. And she said, why? And they said, well, we'll explain when you get in here. So my sister calls me, and she's upset, naturally, and asks if I'll go with her. And, of course, I'm happy to go with her. And we go in and we get a diagnosis that we hadn't expected. And as we're leaving the office, you know, I made sure I took copious notes so that she had all the information because I figured she might have been distracted. But, man, she was right on point. When she walked out of that office, she turned to me and she said, I need you to be my buffer. She said, I'm going to focus on getting better, and that's where I need to spend my time and my energy. I can't deal with people who need explanations, who want to commiserate, who need me to hold their hand. I need you to communicate with them. I need you to make sure that they get the information so that I can focus on getting better. And it was my absolute pleasure to do that. And I'm happy to say she is healthy, and that was just such a terrific way of creating and enforcing a boundary. I mean, she was absolutely focused on what was most important, and that was her getting better. Another example, I have friends here who own a retail and service combination business. They work together, they live together, and they have a rule, and rule is another label for a boundary. They have a rule that they won't discuss business after 8 p.m. on a weeknight, and they won't discuss business at all on Sundays because that's their day off. And they work very hard to enforce that rule because their business could take over 24/7 if they let it, including their relationship. So this is one of the ways that they put that boundary around their relationship. And I think that's just great. I've got another friend down here. She's actually a real estate agent, and she and her husband have a rule that they only go out to dinner one time per week. And the reason is that both of them have a particular health lifestyle. And in order to enforce the boundary around how they choose to live their life, they know that it makes it difficult for them to go out to dinner more than one night a week. They lose some of the control that they want. So this is how they enforce that boundary. And she's a successful real estate agent. Dinners and events and things like that are important to her business. But she makes a choice. She makes a choice with thought behind it as to what she's going to do and when. And she finds other creative ways to enforce her boundaries. So I think that's a terrific example too. I also have a colleague in her business. She chunks her time, and I thought this was really interesting. On Mondays and Wednesdays, those are the days that she develops programs and products and things for her business. So those are the creative thinking sort of days for her. Tuesdays and Thursdays, she serves her clients and has meetings outside of the office. And Fridays is a logistical sort of day where she puts on the hat and does, bookkeeping and banking and other sort of technology issues and things like that. She's the first one. When you're going to set up a meeting, she'll say, this is when I'm available. And she'll give the days of the time that's available so that she can protect her schedule, because she knows that's what she needs for her business, right? So I really admire that because she's putting her business first. She's protecting that business by saying, this is when I'm available. Instead of saying, oh, when do you want to meet? She'll say, I'm available on Tuesday at X time, or I'm available on Thursday after 3, instead of leaving it up to the other person. So that's also an example of enforcing a boundary. I had friends over last week for dinner, and they eat a plant-based diet. And I knew having them over for dinner, I would be limited in what I could serve them. So I was only too happy to find a new recipe and told them, hey, you're going to be my guinea pig. But it was great to be able to show my love in the kitchen, because that's what I do, and prepare them a meal that fit their dietary requirements. And I asked her when she was here for dinner, she's a networking fiend. She works for a development office and fundraising development, and she's everywhere. I mean everywhere, every day. And it's a lot of dinners and lunches, and I said, how do you do this? And she said, I come in with my own stuff. And if I can't order a menu or a meal that fits my requirements, then I bring my own in. And she says, I'm no longer apologetic about it. So she's learned to enforce her boundary, and I really think that's terrific. So those are some examples of people who enforce the boundaries. So I want to open it up for questions. One of the questions that I got from Lynn is, what do you do when it's family? She said that she tends to want to explain when it's family. Well, that can be tricky. Family can be tricky, admittedly. But again, you have to kind of weigh the discomfort of having that conversation and enforcing that boundary with the relationship. So let me give you an example. I'm not sure if my mom's on the call, but my mother loves her girls, and she enjoys being with us. We enjoy being with her. We talk, and we'll go away together. But years ago, she would call, 5, 6, or more times a day. And at one point, one of my jobs was in investor relations. So for a publicly traded company, you have an investor relations call once a quarter, and then the annual call once a year. And it is a big deal. You have accountants in-house and information flying back and forth between the CFO and the CEO, and it's an all-hands-on-deck kind of day. And I remember on one particular day, I think a cardinal or a bird had hit the picture window in her living room, and she saw it, and she was upset, and she called to tell me. And it was right before the earnings call, and I was just so frustrated in that moment. I knew I needed to enforce that boundary, but not in that moment. So, I ended up having a conversation with her and saying that, if you need to call me at work, if it's really important, I'm happy to take the call, but I can't take calls like this at work, and especially on these days. I'll let you know when these days are, but I can't do this on these days. And she totally respected that boundary. And it helped our relationship because I was so frustrated. So sometimes you have to weigh the discomfort of having the conversation versus the health of the relationship with your family member. So I hope that helps, Lynn. Another one from Gina. She says, what do you do when you find yourself keep saying no to a person? My answer to that is, if you're repeatedly saying no to a person, there's probably a bigger issue. So I'm not sure in what context this is in, but if you keep saying no to a person, there's probably a bigger issue. So I'll use an example of let's say dating. You've got a guy who's asking you out, and you keep saying no because you really don't want to go out with them. The conversation you don't want to have is, I don't want to go out with you, but you've got to find a way to do that if he hasn't kind of gotten the hint and gone away on his own. So if it's, you need to figure out what the bigger issue is, and that's what needs to be addressed. So Gina, I hope that helps. Any other questions? Okay, here's one that I have. What can I do when I have no control over the situation, like at work? Okay, well, what you need to know is that all you have control over is your reaction. So if it's minor and you think it may be you, then you have to do something to get rid of that irritation. You have to be able to release that emotion so that you can be objective. But if it's not you, and if it's something that it's bad enough and it's not being addressed, or maybe it's your boss or your supervisor, then I'd say you've got a decision to make. It's and it might not be an easy decision to make, and I actually found myself in that place at one time. You know, either you have to have a conversation, or maybe you need to think about going somewhere else if you've had that conversation and nothing has happened. I know that way back when I first started working, I had a job, and my supervisor, I would walk in the morning and I would say hello, and she wouldn't say hello back. And, you know, the first time it happened, I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe she didn't hear me. The second time it happened, it was like, oh my goodness, what have I done? Of course, that's the first thing we do, is turn it on ourselves, right? And then it got to the point, you know, I was pregnant with my son, and it got to the point where it was really bothering me. And so I asked her one day, can I talk to you in this office? And so we went into the office, and I said, I don't know what's going on. Forgive me if I've done something to offend you. I don't know what it is, but I can't work like this anymore. I'm pregnant, and I'm stressed out. It's not healthy for me. It's not healthy for the baby. And she got it. She didn't tell me. She said it was her. She didn't tell me what it was, but she just said that, you know, we got to the point where we agreed to be professional. I worked for her. She was my supervisor. You know, we weren't going to be best friends. We weren't going to go out shopping together on the weekends or at night, but we were going to be professional for each other. And that's how it went going forward. And it was much easier. I didn't need to be your best friend. It was just much easier to have that professional relationship. I enforced that boundary. It was tough to do because she was my supervisor. I was afraid, but I had to do it. Another question I got is, what about people who just live to be drama queens and energy vampires? It's almost like they enjoy it like it's a sport. Well, you know, there are people out there who enjoy it a great deal. They love to make other people miserable. They love to stir things up and lob a grenade out there just to see what's going to happen, just for the fun of it. But again, not everyone deserves a place in your life. You get to decide. At the very least, have resources available when you have to deal with these people, if they're people that you can't cut out of your life. Make sure that, you know, you've got your posse and that they can support you. Not always with wine. Sometimes that's okay. But what you're looking for are friends to listen to you or family to surround you to help you re-energize after that life has been sucked out of you, if they can't be cut out altogether. And then one of the last questions I wanted to cover, because this is a good one, is why don't I do it? I know I should, but then I can't seem to say no. Well, just because you know it doesn't mean you automatically do it. And that was a big lesson for me to learn, especially with other people. It's like, well, she should know better. But just because you know it doesn't mean you do it. Just because you know you should eat that blueberry doesn't mean that you're not going to eat the brownie, right? So it happens with other people, even with crossing your boundaries or even you enforcing your boundaries. The only thing I can tell you is just start to do it. Say no, enforce your boundary in a little way. So maybe incrementally. Do it a little more than you did. So I hope that you'll join me later on this month with the From Frustrated to Focus in 4 Weeks, because I feel it's such a critical part for you to really get clarity around what's holding you back. Just get that foundation scrubbed clean so that you can build a strong house on top of it, so that you're able to write that next chapter with clarity, the way that you want it. Because it's your life. It is your story, and it's your turn to write your next chapter the way that you want. So we'll be starting Thursday, May 28th, and you can go to www.gettingtoclarity.com/from frustrated to focused. I have it on the website as well. And sign up for the course. I'd really love to have you there. I believe it's so important for women to help other women. No one should have to feel like they're alone or unsupported. No one should have to figure it out all by themselves. And women need to help other women. And this is why I want to share this valuable information with you. So I hope that you'll join me. And until the next time, here's wishing you the clarity you deserve. I hope you guys have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.